Hi there, this is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is King and Country from 1964, directed by Joseph Losey, starring Dirk Bogarde with his fifth collaboration with Losey, or one of five, not his fifth chronologically. Tom Courtney, Leo McKern, Barry Foster, and several other British actors that you will no doubt recognise. It's based on a play called Hamp, which is the name of Private Hamp, played by Tom Courtney, who is on trial for desertion, and Dirk Bogarde is defending him. Again, this film, made in 1964, will draw comparisons to Kubrick's Path of Glory in 1957, but this is less flashy, much more low budget, and I think a little bit grittier than Path of Glory. Obviously, it's not as good as Path of Glory, but it's another fascinating film by Joseph Losey, who is a kind of enigmatic director, to say the least. He was blackballed in the States, made films in Britain under a pseudonym, made films in Europe. Like I say, this is the fifth. Well, he did 5 collaborations with Dirk Bogarde, and even there a kind of mixed bag. Also, this is a World War I drama. He did The Sleeping Tiger, which is one of the films made in Britain under a pseudonym, which is Dirk Bogarde as a spiv, and a psychiatrist or psychologist is trying to cure him. And then he did Modesty Blaise with Bogarde, which is like this colourful spy spoof homage in the 60s. He also made The Servant, which is probably their most famous collaboration, and he also did Accident with Bogarde as well. Like I say, he's an interesting director, which no doubt I'll do a video on. I've seen a bunch of his films, but still not as much as I would like. According to Letterboxd, I've only seen like 30, or rated 31% of his films. So like I say, this is based on a play. It was shot completely on Shepperton, so it is kind of stage bound, but the sets are amazing. There's lots of rain, there's lots of mud, so even though it was shot in the studio, it does give it a kind of claustrophobic feel. The film opens with a lovely tracking shot of one of the monuments in London. I think it's an artillery monument or whatever, and there's a lying down soldier, or dead is another way to put it, and it does have words around the base of the monument that says "A Royal Fellowship of Death," which again is this idea that these soldiers gave their lives for king and country. They should have just let the kings fight the wars. They'd probably be shorter. So it's a really nice kind of austere start, and Losey also uses still photographs interspersed throughout the film of corpses and dead horses. It is a pretty grim film, but it is shot beautifully. I think there might be a Blu-ray release of it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. That's why I have the DVD, which is a pretty good print, but It does deserve a Blu-ray, I think, because some of the cinematography, the black and white cinematography, is really quite beautiful, and Losey's compositions are amongst his best compositions that I've seen in the films that I've seen of him. So it opens kind of in the present day, and then it segues nicely into the trenches somewhere during World War One. Again, it's a very interior film, even though there are outside shots, but it's mainly rain and mud, as World War One seemed to be consisting mainly of rain and mud, and there's shelling in the distance. And we pretty much pick it up immediately with Dirk Bogarde talking to Tom Courtney about his desertion. So he thought he was drowning, being pulled down. He claims the devil, but being pulled down by another corpse, or a corpse, in this muddy puddle. And then he got out of that and, to quote his words, started walking home to England. The distinction is he wasn't running, he was merely walking, and then he was caught and he's on trial for desertion. Again, with most of Losey's films, this is about class, and most of the films made in Britain in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it's all about class. It's as if Britain's hung up on class or something. So you have the officers speaking a very Oxbridge English, and the kind of privates are all regional accents pretty much. But Losey does a nice thing. I mean, I'm assuming it's in the play, but lots of the privates pretty much form a kind of Greek chorus. So they find a horse riddled with rats, which is a lovely scene. And they put one of the rats on trial themselves, which is intercut with the Tom Courtney trial. Leo McKern plays the doctor, who's one of the witnesses, who gives a nice little turn for a short period of time. He was in Time Without Pity, which is on Indicator, which is another Losey British film with Michael Redgrave. So Leo McKern gives a nice little performance, as does Barry Foster as another officer. It doesn't paint the officers who are in charge of the trial as like monsters. It's fairly even. It's evenly balanced. Again, it's full of wonderful little details, like the kind of makeshift cell that they've made in the trench. The kind of gate or the door is like an old bedstead. The commanding officer has a painting in his dugout, again to still have like a bit of class, even though you're in the trenches in World War One. The officers still get a painting to pretend that it still has some level of normalcy. As far as what happens, does he get off, does he not get off, I think you can probably guess how it goes. But it's so beautifully done and constructed, the ending of the film, that it is really effective, and especially the last couple of seconds. But please don't look at the official poster for the film, because it kind of gives it away. I do hate when film posters kind of do that. Dirk Bogarde's fantastic, as always. He did have a real kind of bond with Losey and the material that they did together, even though they were all kind of different films. Tom Courtney's really good as this confused young guy. Again, the details in the film are really nice. After the priest gives Courtney a communion, he's actually sick, which you can read into that what you like. Maybe the body of Christ was a little bit off that day, I don't know. It's just a wonderful little film. It's only about 85 minutes long. It doesn't need to be any longer. It's really a lean, mean fighting machine. Again, it's not particularly, it doesn't go overboard on the judgment of what these people are doing. It's just literally this kind of thing happened and you are merely a spectator. There's actually a couple of times where Losey uses POV shots which involve us, because we don't actually see the person who was in the POV. It's actually the audience. So there's a nice touch where it's a hand and like a picture of a naked lady is taken off of us, the audience. And there's another really good use of the POV, even though we don't see who the POV is actually of, because it's actually us. Later in the film, which I won't spoil, but it's a very well executed POV as well. So there's a couple little moments where Losey is playing with us and does actually put us directly in, or at least I think he does. But overall, it's a nuts and bolts. It's not very flashy, but the compositions are really nice. Again, the use of still photography to show the kind of the horror that was World War One. Not that other wars weren't horror shows. And the constant mud and the rain. And again, you still have this idea that the officers are trying to stay clean with clean hands. Whereas obviously the quote unquote grunts, the normal troops, obviously didn't get away with keeping their hands clean. So it's another really interesting Losey film. It's certainly another interesting Losey Bogarde film, and it's well worth checking out if you can get your hands on a copy. Hopefully it's something that Network or maybe even Indicator might pick up in the future on Blu-ray, because like I say, the compositions are really nice. Again, in the makeshift kind of cell they have Tom Courtney in, there's actually a kind of space with chicken wire, and you can kind of see, the outside as a means of escape, but of course it's just like a huge puddle full of rats and dirt. But that's Courtney's only kind of view of the outside world. Like I say, it's set bound, it's studio bound, all shot in Shepperton, but it's really claustrophobic and it really works. And again, scenes with like the rat infested horse really gives you this obviously feeling of really nastiness and the kind of horror of it. And everybody's on top form acting wise, and again, 85 minutes, doesn't need to be any longer, works really well. We're dropped just right in it. We don't see the desertion, whether it's desertion or not. There's lovely things about mental health, and as the commanding officer kind of says, the people in charge don't want to hear about soldiers' mental health. I'm just not interested in that kind of thing. So thanks very much for watching this random review of King and Country from 1964. Please let me know in the comments below if you've seen it and what you think of it, or what your favourite Dirk Bogarde, Joseph Losey collaboration is. and hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, saying cheerio.